What's up, everybody? It's Josh from Thousand Echoes. My brother sent me this really great video by Brandon Sanderson. He's the famous author. He's got a big YouTube following, and he writes fantasy books. I'm not super familiar with his work. I've definitely heard his name, but the video itself, my brother thought that I would enjoy. So shout out to Jeff for sending this video to me. And in it, Sanderson is talking about the topic of AI, naturally. And it's so cool, some of the things that he said, that I wanted to just kind of share my own thoughts and how it relates to songwriting. And if you've been following me for any length of time, you will know that I am somebody who continually wrestles and thinks about how can I possibly make the best, most authentic art, through songwriting that I possibly can. So wanted to share with you some of these thoughts. I'm also going to link to Brandon's video because I think it's totally worth checking out. And with that, here is my response to Brandon's video.
In April 2010, film critic Roger Ebert, he made an infamous claim. He said, video games can never be art. Yeah, I know. His blog post set off this firestorm of discussion. I was there back then on the internet. I'm old, and everyone was talking about it.
Sanderson starts out this keynote speech with a quote from Roger Ebert where he talked about video games not being art. And Sanderson actually disagrees. He argues that the emotions of overcoming, the interactive storytelling, that's art.
Because their focus is on obstacles to overcome in order to win. By being victory-focused, he argued they were an innately commercial product, like a toaster, and not able to be considered art. Anyone who deeply loves video games will know his argument just fails to understand what gaming is on a fundamental level. Those of us who are gamers know that the mechanics themselves can be part of the art. And in fact, video games let us tell stories that you couldn't tell in any other medium because the mechanics are part of that artistic experience.
Then Sanderson pivots.
Why do I bring this up? Well, my goal today is to tackle a few questions that Mr. Ebert raised, which I think are more important today than they've ever been, right? Because my goal is to talk about what is art and why we make it.
He says that today's AI surge forces us to ask the same types of questions about what exactly is art. And of course, importantly, why do we create it in the first place? As songwriters, we've all felt this. So when I first started, I was always trying to chase perfect hooks and trying to create something that people would actually want to listen to. I was trying to, in effect, productize my songwriting. And Sanderson touches on that in a really unique way. What I derived from that for my own vocation is that the mechanics of songwriting, chord progressions, rhyme schemes, that's not the art. It's the emotions that they unlock in the process of making it.
The surge of large language models and generative AI raises questions that are fascinating. And even if I dislike how the movement is going and relating to writing and art, I want to learn from the experience of what's happening. We're being forced to ask ourselves about art in a way we never have before. Now, some do say we're in an AI bubble, perhaps a collapse is coming, but even if it does come, I think what has happened so far is enough to force us to confront these questions of what is art, why do we make it?
Okay, so in this keynote, Sanderson brings up a song called Walk My Walk by Mark Lawrence. This is an AI-generated country song that hit #1 on the Billboard charts.
Anyone that heard this song? This was pretty big a few weeks back. This is Walk My Walk. It's an AI-generated song. It was #1 song on Billboard's digital country songs list a couple of weeks ago. When it happened, everyone was like, wait, an AI song is #1? Billboard admitted that there had been 6 in the last few months that had topped their charts that had been generated by AI.
And one of the things he notes is that a lot of listeners can't tell the difference between an AI-generated piece of music and something that is human-created, which, of course, if you're an artist, that makes your stomach drop. He goes on to talk about how certain authors can be mimicked using AI if you feed it enough of the data, and that readers also couldn't reliably tell the difference between the AI version and the human version. One of the things I've noticed in my own experimentation, especially with lyrics, is using AI as a sparring partner, feeding it some lyrical ideas and trying to see what I can derive from it. And yeah, it does a pretty good job of mimicking certain styles and certain songwriters. Like if I say, hey, take this lyric and make it sound like Bob Dylan wrote it, it can draw from some of Bob Dylan's lyrics and come up with something that maybe Bob would write. But when I listen to AI tracks, something always just feels flat to me. There's no lived ache behind the words. And in songwriting, that aspect is what I need to hear coming through. Those nights where you stayed up all night, thinking about a song, experiencing real heartache, or writing from a place of life experience. That's very important. And I don't know about you, but I think it comes down to what sounds and feels the most honest. Sanderson acknowledges some very valid concerns: economic impact, training data ethics, replacing humans. But he also says that his issues with AI run a lot deeper than just those apparent things. And the example of this is he uses the story of John Henry.
Maybe I just hate the idea of a machine replacing a person. For a while, I've imagined that if we needed a heroic symbol of resistance against AI art, we actually have the perfect choice in American folklore. It's John Henry. Do you guys know the story of John Henry? John Henry's an American folk hero. He's a steel driver. Steel driver was this job where they would have to cut holes through thick rock and make a tunnel for a railroad. And they do that by pounding a spike drill into a stone with a hammer and making a spot, and then people could put dynamite in that, right? So John Henry, the myth of John Henry, is of this man who was the best steel driver ever, and then a steam-powered drill came along. And he challenged that drill to a contest to drill a tunnel through stone and see who could do it faster. You might have seen the Disney interpretation of this. I watched it when I was a little kid. So he did it, right? John Henry was able to steel drive better than the drill, and then he died from exertion. This is a result I circle around because it seems the story illustrates what I have to acknowledge. John Henry beat the steam-powered drill, but it cost him his life. And while he proved he could beat a steam-powered drill personally, he didn't change the world. We respect him, but as a society, we chose the steam drill, right? And I would too. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not sure that I fully dislike AI just because it's replacing a human. It's getting closer to the reason, but there's more. Truth is, I'm more than happy to have steam engines drilling tunnels for me to drive through. I don't even dislike AI because it's poorly done, because as we've shown, not all AI can I even tell what is good and what isn't, what is machine and what isn't. I hope I can tell what is good. I've listened to Walk My Walk and it's catchy. I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference between it and a human-made song. I read the Mark Lawrence test and I couldn't tell which one was Robin Hobb and which one was AI. So why? Why does it bother me so much?
So when I think about how this relates to songwriters, AI can be used to generate hundreds of songs in minutes. I could prompt Suno for a ballad about heartache right now and have it spit me out something in every genre 100 times over. But Sanderson asks, does this steal the growth of an artist? I've written dozens of terrible songs. All of them taught me something about songwriting. Voice leading, what lyrics sing well, production, arrangement, composition. Am I using too many instruments or am I using not enough? It taught me when to break the rules, but it also taught me how to create tools. These are those John Henry moments for me. Next, Sanderson talks about data from Star Trek. So you can hear in his keynote that he's a really big Star Trek fan. And this is the character on Star Trek that is an android desperately creating art to understand humanity.
In Star Trek Next Generation, we got Data, right? He's an android, and a lot of his character arcs were about exploring what it means to be human. One of the recurring themes in the show was his attempts to create art, painting, poetry, music, become a comedian, take my wharf, please, classic line. I rooted for Data, a synthetic being without emotions, trying so hard to understand the human experience, and I still do. I have no problem with Data creating art. If he were real, I'd applaud him. Why do I empathize with Data, yet not the AI large language models?
Then he offers the famous quote by Oscar Wilde, "All art is quite useless," from The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is actually part of the prologue. And it's been so many years since I've read that, but he says that that's his favorite part of the book.
This starts to get to the core of the issue for me. One of my favorite essays comes from the preface to The Picture of Dorian Gray. In it, Oscar Wilde, with characteristic wit, argues about a great number of things. I recommend it. It's only a page long. The book is fantastic too, but I've always preferred the prologue to almost anything else he's written. It ends with these lines: "We can forgive a man for making a useful thing as long as he does not admire it. The only excuse for making a useless thing is that one admires it intensely. All art is quite useless." Now, of course, this is Oscar Wilde being a little bit silly. He tended to do that. He took lobsters on walks. But if you look at this idea, there is a point to making art that doesn't have to do with its usefulness. It doesn't have to do with what you can sell it for. It has to do with the intrinsic need to make art. I do think that part of the reason I dislike AI is because it is too focused on the product and not the process. Yes, the message is journey before destination. It is always journey before destination.
Sanderson's take here is that art's value is in the admiration of the process, not utility. In songwriting terms, that useless 3 a.m. session where you scrap an entire chorus the next morning because you didn't like it, but you find the real line of the song, that's the growth. Prompting an AI gives the useful product, but it doesn't allow you that growth. There's no struggle that makes you a better writer. Okay, then Sanderson talks about his personal journey, and this is the part that really got me because he really humanizes it. He shows the audience an old manuscript from when he's 19 years old, writing his first novel.
This is a page of my first book. We had these on display at the World Hopper Ball. I don't know if they're out this year, but they might be. I wrote them longhand in these giant notebooks in Korea. We call this White Sand Prime. I started on it when I was 19, and it's not very good. It's one part ripoff of Dune, one part ripoff of Les Miserables, and one part ripoff of The Wheel of Time. But I wrote it. I did it myself, first word to last word, and there's a seed of something there that is all me.
And he explains how it is derivative and awful, but it was also his. He walks through 5 early manuscripts, each improving, building toward a book he calls Elantris and the Cosmere.
Finally, we reach Elantris, where I brought all of this together. This is when I emerged for the first time as the author I would become. A fully realized fantasy epic, applying all the lessons I learned so far. After Elantris, I started to create the Cosmere, eventually landing at Mistborn and the Stormlight Archive. Maybe someday the language models will be able to write books better than I can. But here's the thing. Using those models in such a way absolutely misses the point because it looks at art only as a product. Why did I write White Sand Prime? It wasn't to produce a book to sell. I knew at the time that I wasn't going to write a book that was going to sell. It was for the satisfaction of having written a novel and feeling the accomplishment and learning how to do it. I tell you right now, if you've never finished a project on this level, it's one of the most sweet and beautiful and transcendent moments in my life was holding that manuscript. Thinking to myself, I did it. I did it.
The key line that I took away from this was that the purpose wasn't to produce something I could sell. It was to turn me into someone who could create great art. And that was such a cool quote to hear from Sanderson because it resonates with me as a songwriter. This is us. My first 50 songs, 100 songs, they weren't great songs. And of course, they were derivative. That's how you start. You start by trying to create what your heroes have created. I wrote cringy love ballads, forced metaphors, but finishing them, it was so addictive. It made me want to just continue on and continue getting better. That feeling of, I did it, that's what transformed me. AI skips straight to polished, but it doesn't make you the songwriter. I know songwriters who have used AI very effectively. In fact, my friend Gary is a fantastic songwriter, and I love his voice and I love what he brings to his music. He has showed me some songs that he's done using Suno, and I'm like, wow, sounds incredible. But he's already a songwriter. That's why it sounds incredible. I wish I could hear his voice on it because I think he has a much more authentic voice. But again, he's somebody who knows how to wield Suno because he's actually had the life experience. He's had many, many years of actually creating without the use of AI tools. But getting back to Sanderson, the core of his entire message is
the process of creating art makes art of you. My friends, let me repeat that. The book, the painting, the film script is not the only art. It's important, but in a way it's a receipt. It's a diploma. The book you write, the painting you create, the music you compose is important and artistic, but it's also a mark of proof that you have done the work to learn, because in the end of it all, you are the art.
You are the art. The process of creating art makes you the art. In songwriting, AI can't feel the heartbreak that births a great bridge. It doesn't stay up rewriting because the melody doesn't match the memory, and it won't grow from failure. Prompting might refine output, but it doesn't build your intuition, taste, or soul as a creator. My challenge to you is that next time you're stuck on a song or stuck on a piece of art or a book or a chapter, stay with it and lean into the grind, because those dead ends that you're hitting are actually forging you. Sanderson ends very powerfully.
15 years ago, Roger Ebert made a well-reasoned but ultimately uninformed statement. How many of you here think he was wrong, that video games can be art? You're right, not because I say it, but because we as a society say it.
Society defines art. We can choose to value the human echo over machine output.
Remember, art is not just the story. It is not just the painting or the sculpture or whatever else you love to create. It's also the process of creation and what that process did to you. We make art because we can't help it. It's part of us. We understand what it is. We are drawn to it because we are of the same substance. We are the art.
We are the art. This keynote really got me thinking about, why am I resistant to this personally? And how does it impact the way I'm thinking about my own art? What about you? Have you felt the difference between AI-assisted tracks and songs that are actually born from your own human experience? I'd love for you to drop your stories in the comments. And if this video resonated with you, I'd love for you to share, like, and just join the conversation. And subscribe for more on the human side of songwriting. And as always, stay creative, stay human, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.